Hi, YouTube. Welcome to She Speaks Bravo. I'm Emily, and this is Pia.
Hi,
Hi,
guys.
Pia.
Hello.
So, a few things to clear up um, because the last episode I was calling Doris Denise Milner Doris, but a lot of people call her Denise. So, I'm going to clear that up. We're going to continue to call her Denise moving
Yeah.
forward. The victim is Denise Milner.
I mean, it was a bit confusing because they were interchanging it a lot.
Yeah.
So that was a little confusing.
It wasn't necessarily wrong.
Yeah, it's not wrong because her name is Doris, but they were interchanging it in the documentary, especially in the second episode, I feel like, because like a picture would say her full name and then everybody was using a different name.
The second thing I want to clear up is you see in the first episode, we tried to be on board with Kristin Chenoweth's overly cinematic, schmaltzy scenes. I really thought that they would lessen as the
doc goes on.
But in fact,
they're in heightening.
They double down.
It's too much.
And it is unbearable.
Yeah, it's cringy.
I mean, like she's reading from such a bad script. Like it's the first one with a voiceover, and she actually says the line, my mom asked if I wanted to go, and I said, is the Pope Catholic? Kristin, shut up.
It's too much. It's too theatery. It's too performative.
And it doesn't fit with any of the rest of it.
Yeah, because if you literally went in as an editor and took out all of Kristin's parts, the documentary, one, would be stronger, and two, like you could her parts wouldn't be missed at all, because the problem with her parts is it's such a long reach in connecting it to what we're actually here for, which is the retelling of this tragic events with these three little girls. It's starting to feel icky to me. Like, second episode, Emily, like she's walking in gleefully looking at her name in her old, I don't know if it's her old school or something in her old hometown, of like this shrine to Kristin Chenoweth. And I'm like, why do I need to see that? If it was a Kristin Chenoweth documentary, makes sense to me. But we're here to talk about a really, really tragic event about these three little girls who were murdered on a sleepaway Girl Scout camp trip. Like, I don't need to see a shrine to Kristin Chenoweth. And then like them trying to somehow connect it to these murders feels really inauthentic. It feels really cheap and it's disrespectful. Actually,
disrespectful.
It feels really disrespectful. I don't like it,
because then they'll throw a line in to try to connect it, and so it'll be like her, talking. When I started to make it, I would think, wow, I could have been one of those girls.
Yeah, and that
reaching.
It's a real reach.
But then when she comes in for that vocal class,
that really
looks terrifying. She walks in, and what's wrong with these kids? It's like these kids didn't want to do it either. These kids are like not happy to be there. They don't look like they like her. She's like smiling and she's so excited. They look terrified of her. It goes on way too long.
We don't
need a vocal warm up.
We don't need. Okay. I felt like it was just like her patting herself on the back of all of her accomplishments. And she wants to somehow be like, I wanted to figure out a way to give back because I'm a survivor, almost like as if she like is any way close. Like,
like didn't have anything to do with this.
She has a very small connection to what happened. Yes, she was supposed to go on the trip, but before I started the whole documentary, to be honest with you, I was under the impression that it was a smaller camp trip than what it turned out to be. It was more of like a huge camp trip with like 100 girls. So yes, she was supposed to be on the trip. The likelihood of her being one of the people is the same likelihood of any of the people who were actually on the trip being a part of it. You know what I mean? So yes, sure. Could there have been a chance that she would have been one of the girls murdered or harmed if she went? Yes, possibility, but she never went. So really, and she didn't know them at all, is what we find out. So there's, besides that small detail, that she has really no connection to them. And so her being a part of the documentary is distracting to me because she's not participating in any of the investigating part, which is what I thought was going to be happening. I thought she was going to interview people. I thought she was going to help in some way bring awareness to it. She is, by, I guess, being a part of the documentary, but for me, she is pulling focus. It just feels
she isn't interviewing anyone. She isn't a part of the investigation. She's purely there to show off that she lived in Oklahoma and is the star of Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's feeling,
it's horrible.
Really,
we are going to drag. So that was going to be a through line through this. We will absolutely honor the story, but we will be dragging Kristin Chenoweth throughout the whole rest of this recap.
And series. Anybody who thinks that, well, at least, you know, her being a star is going to shine light to this case and all that stuff. Yeah,
you can do it in a different way.
You can do it in a different way. One, we watch a lot of true crime. I don't think I've heard anybody talk about this documentary personally.
And I think it's because of her.
And because I told Emily offline, it's because we do watch a lot of crime. And one of the things that I used to start out when I was watching crime was Investigation Discovery. And if you guys are familiar with that channel, it's kind of campy and cheesy. And that's the vibe that her parts bring to it. But if you cut her parts out, it does give me more of a Netflixy, and Hulu does have good crime docs.
Yes.
Like, it just gives it a more legitimate feel if you cut her parts out. And also, you don't need a celebrity ever to have people interested in this topic. True crime is a really big market. People love true crime. You absolutely do not need a Kristin Chenoweth person to have people come and watch. Also, the cover photo I told Emily offline, I thought was horrible. It gives you no context of what we're going to watch. It's just a love letter to Kristin Chenoweth. I wouldn't click on it in the grand scheme of things, because if you look at it on the Hulu page, the font for Keeper of the Ashes is so tiny you can barely read it. You have the cover photo. You have no idea what you're getting into.
I showed my friend and she goes, "Oh, I thought that was a sci-fi show." Exactly.
It gives you no context. I would have never clicked on it if I didn't know. I had to search it because I couldn't even find it on my For You page, I guess you would consider it on Hulu.
They did a horrible job with the marketing.
I only knew about it because I was watching something else. I think I was watching Candy, and then a preview played right after for Keeper of the Ashes. So I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I had heard about the story prior, and then that's the only reason I got there at all.
You made a really good point. Like, with true crime, you never need a celebrity attached to it.
You don't need one.
Like, we eat that up.
Yeah, it's unnecessary.
It's been proven time and time again. If the story is captivating,
and it is,
we will spread it.
This is a very captivating story. Three little girls go to a sleepaway Girl Scout camp and were brutally murdered. Is more than enough. The Kristin Chenoweth connection was an interesting add-on that turned to not be that interesting after finding out the details.
Oh yeah, she really get ready. Anytime a scene comes up, we're going to drag the hell out of her. She go through it. Anytime she comes in, I'm just like, my notes go into all caps, and I'm like, what the fuck is Kristin doing? Like, I'm so mad every time she
literally on. At best should have just been a interview in the top of the first episode, and that's really all we needed from her.
It's like, I don't even want, if she's going to be how she is, how she's acting, all like scripted and reciting a bad
I feel
monologue.
I feel no emotion whenever she's talking.
I don't feel like she has any. There's no heart, even though she's trying so hard to make us feel like she has heart, which makes me not believe it.
Yeah, it's coming off insensitive to me.
Yeah, very much so.
That's my opinion.
That's where we stand on this issue, on the Kristin issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're newly introduced to Harvey Pratt. Now, is this man Native American?
Thank you. I want to know because he's saying
Indian,
but I'm looking at his clothes and he seems to have Native American
rituals, and he has embraced it. So if he's not, this is cultural
appropriation. And I actually meant to look that up because it's fun. So I'm watching Sean hates this particular documentary that I'm watching. That's Sean's my boyfriend. And he really doesn't like true crime in general, but he's really hating this because he hates like the investigation discovery, like reenactment type cheesy ones for sure. Can't stand them. And every time Kristin Chenoweth comes on, he's like, I'm pissed. This is disgusting. And so he's in the other room and he can hear the TV still. And he's like, why does this guy keep from the other room? Can't even see any. He's like, why does he keep saying Indian? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. I also don't know if I'm supposed to be mad because I can't tell if he's Native American. And he keeps saying Indian. So then I'm like, if he is Native American, like I guess he can say whatever he wants. So I'm confused, but then I'm like, the way as it goes on, I'm still confused. I almost feel like he's like a person that the Native American community may have like embraced. So he feels like he's Native American adjacent, and it really has like taken on some of their customs and beliefs. But I'm like, why are you calling them Indian? Like, I don't get it. I'm very confused.
It keeps happening. And
it keeps happening. And I'm
stop.
And also the other one investigator keeps saying Indian too, but he's clearly white.
Which one? The mustache?
No. The mustache one, I believe, is saying Native American. It's the younger white investigator who's in the office.
Tim Stanley.
Yeah.
The reporter?
Yes, the reporter. I believe he keeps saying Indian too.
I'm not clocking that.
I was trying to rewatch it before we did this. I didn't have time to finish, but I actually think he said it at least a couple times. I know he said it once for sure.
Oh, really? Okay.
Definitely said it once.
I actually thought he was doing a pretty good job.
I feel like I think he's doing both. I believe he's doing both. Like he sometimes says Native American, and I think sometimes he says Indian.
Oh, okay.
I'll have to rewatch.
Him as actually seemingly sensitive.
I think he is. I don't think I think he's unintentionally saying it.
Okay.
Just because, we grew up saying Indian. I said Indian growing up because we didn't.
I did too.
I mean, I did. Like that's what we were told to say.
We were literally taught.
We were taught to say Indian until one day someone was like, that's fucking disgusting. They're not Indian. And that's
like they were literally misnamed that
because Christopher Columbus is an idiot and had no idea that he was not in India. That's where that came from.
I love that we finally all know that like Christopher Columbus was actually a complete idiot, moron, genocide leader.
Yeah, like that's not someone to celebrate. Okay, that got off topic, but
yeah. We digress. So speaking of Tim Stanley, the reporter guy, he gives us a rundown of what evidence was left behind. And one of them was the flashlight that had tape on it with a hole poked in it so that it wouldn't omit a bunch of light. It would just omit enough so that he could see where he was going.
Yeah, it was like a trash bag that he taped around.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And then like he could just like cover it up, obviously, if anyone.
That's actually smart.
Very creepily smart. And then in the tent, there was blood all over the floors and on the flaps of the tent.
Yeah.
Michael Wheat, mustache man.
Great mustache.
Great mustache man. He cries when he talks about how when one of the bodies of the girls was brought out, there was a fly that came by their face, and he tries to describe how he had to wave the fly out of her face, and he starts crying. I mean, this man keeps getting choked up, and it kills me. It really kills me. So here's what they believe. Here's what investigators believe at the time.
Mhm.
They believe that the perpetrator came through the rear of the tent. And it's what we thought. Lori and Michelle were murdered first.
Yeah.
And Denise was murdered and sexually assaulted where they were left near that area. And they think what happened was when Carla, the camp counselor's alarm went off at 6 a.m., it made him panic. And so the one mistake he made was he leaves the flashlight at the scene and he runs.
I just think that it's amazing. I swear I paused it when they described what they thought happened. Like when they looked at the evidence, and I was like, Emily, are we in the wrong line of work? Because we definitely figured that out before we even saw that. We figured, we deduced that was the order of how it happened. We have literally officially been watching crime docs too long.
Yeah. And they know the timing of this is accurate because Denise's body was still warm to the touch and the other girls were cold.
Yeah.
Which is horrific.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's something that I clocked. Okay. They interviewed camp counselors, even though they knew it was most likely it was a man, obviously.
Yeah.
But then they also interviewed surrounding property owners. And they were just, they had nothing to do with it. Are they sure?
Well, that's how I felt too. They were just so dismissive. They had nothing to do with it. And, I don't know if it's a time thing for the documentary that they just summed it up for us, or if there is just they did do their due diligence.
Yeah.
And and they were definitively able to
truly knew
to exclude them, but they don't give us that information for us to feel that way, especially later on as we go into the documentary and find out other information about the investigators. So I'm also left wondering, are we sure?
Yeah, because as we've come to find out, serial killers can be the guy that you're having a barbecue with.
Absolutely.
It's the person you least suspect, even though I feel like I would know. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's that person. And so was it some cute little old man that you went up and asked? And it's like, it couldn't be this guy. It's like,
oh, absolutely. I trust no one. I don't care how cute and old they are. After watching that show from almost 10 years ago with Kevin Bacon, The Following. Have you ever seen that show?
No.
Oh, actually, it's so good. Oh, the first season's excellent. After that, it kind of gets progressively worse. But the first episode is the most chilling first episode of a network TV show I've ever seen. And it made me change my perspective on every and anyone. It's about cults, and anybody can be.
The Following?
The Following. Starring Kevin Bacon. It was from almost 10 years ago. I believe it was on maybe Fox. I can't remember, but it was it was the first episode. Just the first episode alone is chilling.
Really?
Yeah.
So I need to look that up.
Yeah. Just watch the first episode. It's the best episode. And the first season in itself is super good. After that, it's not that great.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. Okay. So Harvey Pratt, the Native American man, let's hope. He describes that Locust Grove, which is the area that the camp is in, has lots of abandoned cellars and cliffs and caves, which is just absurd.
Yeah.
And at the opening of one of the caves, there's these 4 little fires that looks like a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first time he goes, I hope this is not an Indian that did this. And that was the first time I was like, whoa.
Are we still saying Indian? What? And also, aren't you Native American?
Buddy.
So confusing.
And then they find out that there was a pair of sunglasses that had been. This was interesting. A pair of sunglasses that were stolen from one of the counselors' tent. Now that means they were also then going into other tents.
That's so creepy.
And when? Like not necessarily when they were sleeping. They could have all been like out of the tents.
Oh,
like
I
going
think
around.
it feels like that. It wasn't. I feel like that guy had been in whoever it was either had been living in that particular woods for a minute, like for a little while there, for at least a few days prior to the camp maybe opening, and I think maybe disrupted him or whatever when the camp started up, which is why it happened so quickly. So he probably was like watching in the distance, and like maybe when they were off doing whatever, kind of like checked out all of the bunks and stuff like that, which is probably how he obtained one of the counselor's sunglasses. Also, I would like to know what counselors, if they figured out which counselor's sunglasses they were, and if they could come up with a timeline of when she noticed they were missing. Because I think that could also be like, I don't know, some helpful in some way. And then also, I wonder if that is the case, had he seen the three little girls prior to him doing the assault? Like it wasn't random. It wasn't like that was just the best, most convenient tent. Like if he had seen them, seen what tent they went to, and like he kind of like picked them out. You know what I mean? Like knew he was going to, it wasn't random. Like he had seen them earlier in the day, unbeknownst to everyone else, and targeted them,
I feel like Denise was targeted.
Yeah, because I feel like he specifically wanted her, because I don't think that at least they don't say, I don't think the other two girls were assaulted.
I don't either.
I feel like he was attracted to her specifically, which just makes me feel like he'd seen, it wasn't a chance encounter. Like he didn't just like, it just so happened he picked their tent. Like, I feel like he knew he wanted Denise and he targeted that tent,
Yeah.
and because Denise was like, I don't know if he felt like she like maybe the other little girls were like, he had like so disgusting to say, like a type. Like she seemed she was like a little bit more like a rounder, older, a little rounder, maybe, if it felt, I don't know if that was like what he was attracted to. And I also kind of feel like he might, I'm not a psychologist, but I'm trying to like get into his head. Like I almost feel like the reason why he didn't assault maybe Denise inside of the tent is because how gruesome it was inside, and maybe he couldn't actually do what he needed to do with all of that gore around,
or simply the thought that he could get caught.
Yeah,
like because like there was the close proximity of the other tents.
Yeah.
And so like taking her out to a more secluded place.
Yeah, because I feel like it almost like he almost wanted it to be like more civilized, more romantic in a weird way. So disgusting to say, but
I know. They also find photographs that, they seem, which they're so stupid. They're like, they didn't seem like they meant anything. I'm like, what are you talking about? Anything you find means something.
Everything.
So they put them on TV, and then that leads them to Leroy Hart.
Yeah.
Who is now okay. Let's just go through what this guy's charges. He's serving 4 to 140 years for rape, kidnapping, and burglary. Like for the most part, he's an escapee. For the second time, he's escaped from.
Yeah, twice.
So, look, do I think that oftentimes cops get it wrong because they want to target racially? Absolutely. And also, do I think that because they think this guy is guilty because he escaped and I want to prove a point? But I kind of don't blame them in this moment for being like, it's probably him. Because in your head, you're like, who else could it be? This has never happened before. And we just happen to have this guy who's escaped, who's serving time for raping, kidnapping, and burglary.
Okay.
I can kind of understand.
I agree if everything happened the way that they're saying. I agree with you. The only other way that I would think that he can't possibly, because it'd just be such a coincidence, is if there was some type of evidence planted after the fact to make it to link him. You know what I mean? So go with me for a second. This is my alternative theory. If they want to say this is the cops having tunnel vision and wanting this guy to be the person. The sheriff who they're trying to paint out to be somebody who is just has a hard on for this guy because he's embarrassed him and escaped twice. It could have happened possibly that when he saw what happened, he knew he has somebody who's escaped and it's on the lam. He's like in his head immediately that I know who it is. But and him being like that maybe, and also I don't think anybody else around here did it. Going back to our original theory, are we sure it's not everybody else in the surrounding area? Him just being like, no, it's not him. I know who it is. Couldn't be anybody else. He's escaped. How could it not be? I think I already had theory he's living in the woods. Is it possible that he had in evidence these photographs already and just placed them there to connect him? So everybody would be on board with this, like putting it on him. Is it possible that they placed the woman's sunglasses there? I don't know, because they were traipsing around that place. I don't know. So that's like my old, if they put the evidence there, like I could see it being racially motivated. If it truly was found there from the very beginning, then I just don't see how it could be anybody else either. It just would be such a coincidence that a known convicted rapist who's on the lam, who had been there, is not connected. It's such a coincidence. So that's just my thought process here.
And it's interesting though, because this guy would seemingly be someone that because the court of public opinion, especially back then, they typically side with whoever cops are like, it's that person. That's right. The bummer is that when you're wrongfully accused, it sucks, because then you have to really fight to prove your innocence, because then everyone's like, oh, it's them, they did it. And it's like, no, I'm actually innocent. And then like decades later, you finally get acquitted.
Yeah.
But even the public opinion, they were like, this guy didn't do it. That's pretty amazing that even the public opinion was, no, guys, it's not him.
Yeah, that was also super interesting. And I also know that they did give us a idea that in that town, people did idolize sports heroes. So it could be a biased opinion. And so like the problem with that is that it's so murky and muddy on both sides that that's where reasonable doubt comes in, right? Like, I don't know if we can definitively say if either side is looking at it without tunnel vision. Yeah. That's the hard part. I'm feeling like it's this is very similar to Making a Murderer for me, where it's like
very similar,
right? The guy was absolutely a criminal and has been convicted. So yes, has a history. He has capabilities of doing bad things. But as we know from that documentary, the person that was leading the investigation has a real deep-rooted bias for him and his family. And it did seemingly seem that he may have planted evidence because he just believed that he did it to make everyone go with what he wanted. So that's how it kind of connected me with my possible alternative theory if it was corruption for this particular case.
Well, and we also have the factor of racism,
right,
which is so real. So we were introduced to Gary Pitchlynn, who's a former legal advisor for the Native American Center, and it's a real thing. And it was so sad when he describes that they were basically, the Native American people were relocated with the promise of more opportunity, more education, to land more jobs, but basically they were just abandoned in the metropolitan area, and they didn't have a home to come back to.
I mean, and that makes sense because first of all, we are in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I don't know if everyone is familiar with the deep racist history of Tulsa, but that's where the Tulsa massacre happened for the Black community. There was a prevalent, really, really rich Black community and near Tulsa, and all the racism happening and people not liking that. There were all these. It
was like Black Wall Street, right?
Yeah, and they massacred all of the people. So there is a very deep rooted racist history in Tulsa, Oklahoma. already. So deep rooted.
Yeah. So a lot of factors are playing in. But wait, when they describe how Leroy escaped, is pretty badass.
It is badass.
First he escapes with a file that his mom brought in. He like sawed the bars off. And then 2 weeks later, he escapes again. Then
that's impressive.
He stays in the Locust Grove area and is so bold that the people would see him in town. And they were like, 1 minute they'd be like, oh, look, there's Gene. And then the next minute they'd like, oh, and he's gone. Like when you're on the lam, you're in like a cabin in the woods. You're invisible, but he's like, I'm gonna go grab a bite. So it makes sense that the sheriff, who is the creep, they put a picture of the sheriff. He's got the scary ass teeth and the white man, like bald and hair. Oh.
Does he not look like the sheriff from the Jessica Biel version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I never saw that movie.
Oh, it's so good.
I don't do horror.
Okay, well, you need to.
No. That's what you do. I can't. I get nightmares.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I do too, but I still do.
No, I get nightmares. It's not fun. It's weird. I can do true crime, but I can't do horror.
It makes sense. That actually makes sense. I think I am way more scared of like horror movies than I absolutely am of like real life retellings.
I think because like horror movies are literally designed to scare you, like the music and like as where true crime is like documenting it.
Yeah, no, the Jessica Biel Texas Chainsaw specifically you'll get fucked up. You will be fucked up.
I won't be able to sleep for like 3 days.
Correct.
Correct. So that's this guy. Clearly, like the sheriff's gonna have it out for that guy.
Oh, 100%.
So your theory of him planting evidence, it's very making a murderer because it's like, yeah, he's pissed.
Yeah.
So it's pretty easy to be like, throw some pictures down. It's this guy. It's this guy.
And then also, why wouldn't, if he was sacrificing, like those pictures, obviously it's supposed to, I think he would burn the pictures, correct? If they were doing some ritual. So why were they in perfect condition, just left there, just perfectly?
But then they also said that there were pictures that were torn up that they put back together.
Oh, they did say that.
Confused by that.
They did say that, but I also feel like in rituals, everything like when you, especially so it's clear he was doing fire stuff. Usually you light it on fire. I just feel like they would be charred. Something about them would be burnt.
It felt like all the evidence was disconnected, basically, is what we're saying. Like all the evidence, it felt like it wasn't all pieced together. Well, also, too, there could be multiple people living out in these like woodsy areas, just being weird and like on the lam people. It could be like there could be a dozen people living out there just being weird.
And I get it. He makes the woman in the picture is connected to him, which is how we got here. So I don't know. It just feels a little too convenient. And also that's why I say with the sunglasses thing, it almost feels like I need everyone to know it's not a coincidence. So like, it could be a coincidence that he was just happened to be in the forest and it doesn't necessarily mean he did it. He was on the lam. It would make sense for him to be in the forest. And I feel like having the sunglasses be there too from the camp counselor, it just solidified there was a connection to the camp. Everything seems very convenient.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Because like you could still write it off as, even if he was there, he was on the lam. So he would be in the woods. It doesn't necessarily mean he did it. It's a coincidence. That's what coincidences are. The sunglasses makes a connection. I'm just saying. And the thing is,
I did feel very out of place.
And then also think about the investigation wasn't pristine. We hear the guy saying like they didn't even know, like I don't want to get too far ahead because I know you're going to say this, but like it just seems like the way that they were investigating was.
You mean they hadn't even opened the bags?
Yeah, I know that you're going to get there.
I actually skipped that part. You're right. Go ahead. Say that part.
So they never even opened the sleeping bags with the other two little girls that were in it because I think that they were really terrified to see what was in the tent or with what would they would find in the bags of the little girl. But absolutely, they could have still been alive, because just because someone has been assaulted doesn't mean, and left for dead doesn't mean that they are dead. There's so many times people have been left for dead and they're still hanging on. So them not like checking could have like, I think that they were dead. In the sense of thank God, because at least it wasn't like they could have saved them. There was nothing they could have done, but they should have opened those sleeping bags. So my point being is that the investigators were not sharp. I think that they were probably like fucked up some of the evidence. They just didn't seem like they were they were familiar with dealing with something like crimes like this. I don't think crimes like this happen where they're in that town that often. Yeah. So they weren't trained to be able to make sure that they're like not contaminating evidence and stuff like that. So I could also see it very plausible that this guy the head sheriff guy comes in and sees this and immediately was like, it's that guy. And
they get tunnel vision like nobody's business.
We've seen it in so many different cases,
countless times.
So it's not, yeah. If I was a lawyer, and even if we capture the guy, I don't know if we do, because we're still watching, but I would if I was his lawyer, I would say all this.
Okay. And then Kristin's stupid fucking voiceover comes over, and and then for some dumb reason, she's like, this made me realize the boogeyman can be real. And then there's this really unnecessary shot in slow-mo of her walking through a field. And then they go right back to what they were doing. Once again, useless.
Yeah,
it totally doesn't unnecessary.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like
it's adding zero value, and it's purely gratuitous for her to be involved in this. It doesn't. It's like, Kristin, just sit it out. It's almost like I take back that like maybe she presented this. Here's my new theory of what happened. She found out they were going to make a docuseries, and she called and was like, if you are going to do a docuseries, I have to be a part of it. Because, I'm from that. I was supposed to go on that trip. And they're like, okay, well, do you want to like interview people, or, well, no, my schedule won't allow it. Okay, well, then what do you want to like, I don't know, help solve it? No. I kind of can't. Maybe just shots of me randomly, like seeing my family and doing a vocal warm-up.
Like when she saw, oh God, like, I know you're going to get there. I just can't.
I can't. Okay. Moving on. Now we see, 10 days after the murder, they do one of those huge like hunts looking for Jean Leroy Hart. And they bring in these super dogs from out of state. And now this weird shit starts happening. The dogs would be like tracking all far, and they would just quit. They'd get confused and just stop. And the explanation, one of the investigators is like doing an interview, and they're like, he's just so acquainted with this area. Like he's been clearly like living in these woods for that long. And then all these like folklore start happening that he can like shapeshift. He shapeshifted into a bird. Then 2 of the dogs died, and now it's Native American magic.
See, this is what makes me further believe that it was a setup, because it's feeling racist to me.
Like now you are literally painting a picture of a Native American man and scaring the public.
It's what white people or people who are not that are not Native American, I should say, think of what they like Native Americans can do, and that they can literally transform into like different animals, like it's Pocahontas or something like that, the animated movie. And also, like, I don't know, like when they said that all of a sudden his tracks stopped and we couldn't find these really, really well-trained dogs, sniffing dogs, just couldn't all of a sudden stop, couldn't find it. When they said it, I don't know if it necessarily happened then, but they were shown in picture body of water, and I've just seen a lot of movies where people try to lose the scent of dogs, and if you go into water they can no longer
That's where they
smell.
show the dogs stopping too.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just a picture. Maybe they were just referencing it, but like
that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that's actually when it happened, so maybe that's not the case. But for what we saw, I was like, yeah, no shit. Like, I am not a woodsman, but I know that if I get into water, the dogs can no longer smell my tracks. Like, I've seen it in so many movies. So that's what I would do. Also, even if that isn't where the dogs stopped, if we've already established that this guy is really acquainted with the woods and it seems like he's really a wilderness person. So it would be, I think that he probably has a whole arsenal of things in his like bag of how to stop a scent, his like to hide his scent or his so that dogs can't track him. Like whether it be, I don't know, like like herbs and stuff like that, like that you can maybe dust
essential oils.
Like I fucking don't know because I don't. That's not my like wheelhouse, but I'm not like, I think that if you're really good at that kind of shit, like you could easily figure out how to like make sure you can't be found by dogs. Like I don't think you need magic to do that.
I also, it further makes me believe that it could easily be a surrounding neighbor that knows the area really well. Like, you know, what's his name? Gacy.
Oh yeah. Is it Charles Wayne Gacy? Is that his name?
I can't remember his first name, but Wayne Gacy. That sounds right. Like he was just your average everyday dude who was just murdering people.
Yeah.
Disgustingly torturing and murdering gay men and burying them under the house. So
it's John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy. And, you know, people were like, there's all these photos of him hosting barbecues at his house. And, you know, I think he was like,
they just had a documentary.
I just watched it.
Me too.
Is it Netflix?
I think it was Netflix, I believe. I'm gonna rewatch it because I was on my phone.
Me too. Always. No, it's dark, very dark. But he's just according to everyone else, like neighbors and stuff, he's just your normal guy.
Yeah.
So I just don't ever like to rule those people out because like crazy people that
he was very double lives
are real.
Yeah. I don't know.
And if that person can like escape into their house, then I don't know. So I wish they had kind of gone a little bit more into detail about who the surrounding neighbors were.
Right. They're really trying to make us just trust that they know what they were doing, which you're not really giving me a lot of like evidence to just blindly trust you that way. And again, I haven't finished the doc, so maybe we circle back to that.
Exactly. Maybe they go back to it, but I just
so far
the pacing of it is interesting.
Yeah, but I am excited that we have at least one suspect because I wasn't sure if we were going to have anything from the first episode, if it was just them like trying to find a suspect. So I'm glad we do have something so far that we can talk about.
We get more into like the background of how this was a, racist issue. And then Tim Stanley, the reporter, he's seemingly younger, but everyone's the same age. He talks about how Hart was a big football player. Mm-hmm. And there's just this little moment, but Tim goes, high school football was a big deal. Always has been. And the way he said it had this like moment of him being like I could tell he was like beat up by football players. Like he was like triggered. He was like always has been.
Oh God. And
I was
you're really good at like,
okay, Tim.
Like, see, I didn't make that connection. This is the second time you've done this. Like the connection with the Girl Scout camp counselor and maybe why she liked camp so much. And then this, I am missing that element. You're really good at picking up people's traumas.
Oh no.
Damn. I like completely did not make that connection. It also makes sense to me.
It was such a little moment, but I'm like, you're good, Tim. Look at you now.
You're really good at picking up people's traumas. Put that on your resume. Special skills.
I can hone in on a trauma.
Yes.
But like we said earlier, the whole like high school football star thing is a big element, but he pretty quickly he turns his life around. But then fucking Kristin, with the awful reading of her lines, they start showing images, and out of nowhere, it's a picture of her. She goes, "Yup, I was a cheerleader."
I was so mad.
Shut up.
And then
Shut up.
And in order to like justify it, then she's like, I just couldn't help but thinking like what their lives could have been like. Me just being a top cheerleader, everyone loving me. And okay, so I'm embellishing now, but like it's essentially the tone of what she's saying.
The tie-ins don't work. There's such reaches.
It just every time it's a tie-in, it's like a tie-in to see how great she is as a person and as an actress and as a community leader. And it's almost like are you running for an election? Some
of Oklahoma?
Like are you lobbying to have the key to the city? I'm confused of why I need to know any of this information and what it pertains to this like 3 little girls who again were brutally murdered at sleepaway camp, Girl Scout sleepaway camp.
She goes, "Yep, I was a cheerleader," as if we were asking.
No one asked her a question. I actually have a separate theory that they only asked her for an interview and she just keeps coming to set. And it's like no PA is willing to tell Kristin that she was wrapped 3 days ago.
She keeps like taking the mic to do a voiceover. They're like, Kristin, she's like, "Yep, I was a cheerleader." They're like, "Kristin, give me the mic." She's like, "And that's what every Friday night."
Yeah, like it's insane. Like she's starting to make her own schedule. She sends out the night before it's all of the production. Yeah, the call sheet. And she's Kristin Chenoweth. She's bigger than life. Like no one knows how to tell her that she's not she's not a part of this. So, so they're just like, I guess we should use this footage. Like, we shot it. I don't know why we did, but we did. So that's my working theory.
And then, it gets even worse. It continues to get worse.
It's just the only way I could see any of this happening and why it's happening and why I'm watching it. So,
Mustache Man calls all the disbelief around Leroy Hart because like the town does not believe that he was the guy.
No, they like really actively don't. I want to find the one person in town who's like, I knew he was a fucking serial, like he liked little girls. I want to find the one because it's like they have not one person from that town that believes that this man did it. So I want to find the one person who was like, no, guys,
like he did. Because like, Mustache Man calls all that disbelief a conspiracy. He fully believes it was.
I believe Mustache
Leroy.
Man. I believe Mustache Man.
I do too. I feel like it could have been Leroy, but I also don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Mustache Man is the only person that is really trying to look at everything.
But he thinks it's all a conspiracy. That he believes it is Leroy.
Yeah, he does. But I just feel like the way the evidence does point to that, but like, I don't think he would necessarily, even if it was like my working theory that there was evidence planted, I don't think he knows about it. Like,
yeah, no, Mustache Man believes that Leroy is the guy because he's very mocking of everyone not believing it. He's like, then this conspiracy starts that he didn't do. Like, he's very annoyed at that whole momentum of disbelief.
Well, the town's reasoning of why they believe it's not Leroy isn't like strong. It is mostly coming from him being a football star, which, as we know, football stars can be murderers. O.J. Simpson. So that wouldn't work for me either. And if he wasn't a part of, if my theory is correct, planning evidence, yes, Leroy does look like the plausible explanation for who would have done it. Like, so that I feel like he's in a world where he has been might have been given false evidence. So he is a good investigator and working off of that. So I think he's set up for failure.
Yeah. And then I think part of it too is that Sheriff Pete Weaver, they know he's got it out for Leroy. They know he's so mad that he's been made a fool. He's been made a fool.
And
2 weeks later, he was escaping.
That is like your job's on the line, and maybe and your job's on the line, and maybe you need to make sure you close. And
now you got 3 dead girls.
Yeah, he was about to get fired. That sounds like, I don't think that he killed the girls, by the way. That's not my working theory. I just think that it was convenient for him it was like kill 2 birds with 1 stone situation. This murder happened. He has an escaped convict that has been convicted of rape.
Mm-hmm.
This would solve all of his problems if he was the guy, and
he's already serving 4 to 140 years.
Yeah.
Let's just let it be this guy.
Yeah.
Who does it hurt?
And we've seen a lot. And we've seen many, many cases where they will do that, because people need to understand it's not always about, for investigators, truly finding the person. It's about closing the case. That's what they care about. And it doesn't matter who it is. That's why even when people are found later in life wrongfully convicted and we have another killer, investigators 9 times out of 10 won't even apologize. They refuse to believe because that means that they did something wrong. So they're like, I still believe they had something to do with it. That's what, like, the same thing that happened with the what was it called in New York with the little black children who were wrongfully convicted of that rape in the jogger. It's something 5.
Yeah.
They don't like to call that, so that's fine.
Okay, good. Then we won't call them that.
Yeah.
But we know the case.
Yeah. It's the same thing. The investigators to this day that are part of that particular case still feel like they had something to do with it, even though they've been exonerated and the person who did it fully confessed and fully exonerated them from being a part of it and said he did it by himself. Nothing to gain from it. He got nothing shaved off for like coming forward. He actually purely did it because I think he found Jesus or something. And he came across one of the boys. He was in the same jail. Off topic, but
that's for another day.
It's for another day.
But people really, really didn't believe it, to the point where they went up Betty Milner, Denise's mom. She was a nurse, had a patient. First thing she says is, I don't think Hart couldn't have done this. And Betty was like, are you fucking kidding me?
I don't even think she said it like that, which is still bad. I think she literally said it like it was a damn fact. She's like, he didn't do this. You know that he didn't kill your kid. Like, what? How? Don't come up
to someone. She said they were coming up to her on the street?
Like, what gives you the right to come up to a grieving parents and proceed to tell them who killed their child, as if you know anything or know any of the facts of the case? Even if this guy didn't do it, it's still fucking tasteless and disgusting to do that. It's not necessary. That's not even something that they're thinking of right now. They're still thinking about how they don't have
what you're doing is actually bringing up their trauma.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing.
Yeah, it's disgusting. And if you really feel strongly that Hart is being wrongfully accused, go to investigators and say that. That's the person you say that to, because saying it to some grieving parents that are not. Yeah, no, that's just, it's fucked up. What's wrong with you? It's fucked up on every fucking level. Disgusting.
Mrs. Farmer was sweet. I think her name's Shelley. She said, she's like, now I realized that I was naive and not understanding of the feelings of Native Americans, which was sweet. It showed growth.
Yeah. And it's a growth that I didn't even need her to show, because she's a victim. Like, it's really nice that she later was able to see other people's perspective and how it's not even about Hart, how it was actually making other like Native Americans, like it was painting an ill picture of them. And I think that's what she's like has compassion for. I don't even think it's necessarily Hart, because by the way, he is still convicted of some rape. So whether he did it or not,
we'll get into that.
Yeah, like he's still like a bad person. Like,
yeah, because that's what's funny is when we find out what he was charged for, he picks up 2 women from a bar and at gunpoint takes them out into the woods, ties them up with rope, which rope was involved, or no, it was tape.
It was tape. Yeah.
To a tree and takes turns raping them and leaves them for dead. So this isn't like some great guy.
Yeah. Like, no. Yeah. I think that she was really more so talking about what the ripple effect on what it did to the Native American community.
Exactly.
So, so I think
that she was unaware. She was unaware of like how they get targeted or wrongfully accused more often. And that she was just completely unaware of it in general.
Right. So that is what I think she's really referring to.
So then now this is where I was like, okay, maybe Harvey Pratt is Native American, because they do these like shots of his house with like all the Native American decor. And he's like doing ritual stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so is he Native American? But then he says that they sent him in undercover. So it's like, wait, so was he sent in undercover and then he like adopted the culture and now he thinks he is, or is he really?
What I felt like from that segment of it, because I think he said something else where he was like, they sent him in because he was already affiliated with them.
Okay.
So it would be easy for them to open up and speak to him.
Okay.
Well, that's
so
what
let's just say that he is.
thought. But the thing is, when I say affiliate, I feel like I still feel like the reason why they said those words is because he's not, but he might be so interested because you can see all of his decor and what he's even wearing, that he maybe had a pre-existing friendship with these people, and like, like that community embraced him because he was genuinely interested in that culture. I don't know. I'm looking. Okay. I'm trying to look it up right now because I never did. I need to know his origin.
Yeah. So he goes undercover and starts hanging on bars, and they end up getting a lead. And literally he goes, "We got a lead." And the next scene is Kristin's stupid scene visiting her family, looking at photos. What is the point of this? It goes on for so long. She looks at a picture of her brother. She goes, "I loved him. I still do, but I loved him."
I don't understand. I didn't understand.
And on and on.
Wait, I didn't understand that. Like, why did we need to know that she loved her brother? She still does. Like, I thought that was going to connect in some way, and it never did. And I'm like, are you guys? Is he dead? Did you guys fall out? I was so confused by that, and I was like, why am I having questions about that? It has nothing to do with what I'm watching.
And then the scene is over, and then we go right back. Literally, we got a lead. Like, it's like they pick right back up. They just like, do they think that they're trying to like, is this to ground us and remind us that Oklahoma is just a bunch of good people?
I don't think he's Native American, according to Wikipedia, but I think he has deep roots in I'll have to read it in more detail after we get off, and then we'll talk about it next time. But it seems as it's kind of what I thought. I think him and his family has a deep connection to the Cheyenne. He is recognized by their tribe.
Okay.
I think I'm trying to read really fast, but it's really hard. So I'll have to look more closely.
So stay tuned for part 3 if you want to find out.
Yeah, I'll research it better later.
Okay. So after that stupid scene with Kristin, we get back into the good part. So they got a lead that he's in Crooks and Hills, the Badlands, where there have been more Western fights than anywhere in the country. The old stomping grounds of Pretty Boy Floyd and Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh my God, that's like wild.
I'm in. I was
so in when they said that. I was like, this is wild.
And then they showed like an old timey video of these like guys getting out and like shooting cops. I was like, is this real or is this like a movie?
Oh yeah, how did we have that footage?
That's what I said. I was like, who took the footage? This has to be a movie, like an old movie that they just spliced.
Yeah, it has to be. There's no way that there was.
It can't be like news footage from that time.
That definitely no. I don't even think they had cameras.
It just didn't make sense. But old stomping grounds of Bonnie and Clyde and Pretty Boy Floyd, I was like, oh, okay. Why didn't they go looking here right away then? If you know that this, like, to me, that would seem like go there right away. Like if you couldn't find them right in in the initial vicinity. Granted, these are probably really hard places to look and probably very dangerous. Because once someone gets planted in there, they're just like waiting for someone to come by and they can shoot whoever.
I'm sure, but I still think it should have been on their radar, which further makes me not trust them as investigators.
Yeah.
And when they excluded the surrounding neighbors, it's just giving me more reason to doubt that they didn't do a thorough investigation of the surrounding neighbors.
Like if that's going to be, if that's within a vicinity that you're familiar with and you know it's a bad area, then I would think that you would go digging around.
Yeah.
And so they had a lead that he was in some cabin, and the person they had the lead from, they go to the house of that person and the wife comes to the door. And this scene, think about this scene. Okay. They come to the door and this would be like a good acting scene.
Yeah, it would.
They come to the door and Hart says, look, if we find him, we won't kill him. We'll take him alive. And she stares at him long and hard. She thinks about it for a while and she knows she's about to betray her husband. But she says, okay, I'll take you there. And then she gets in the car and drives him up there and she points him at the cabin. And she gave him up.
I mean, I would have too. I'd be like, she probably didn't want to do it in the first place. And she was like, listen here, I said I was going to say anything, but now I got they're here.
They're here. And I'm like, you should not. Nuh-uh.
I didn't really want to participate in the first place. So yeah, I would love to disconnect myself from this.
Yeah.
Immediately.
We're done. And so then they have all these cool, tactical shots of how they were going to go in and storm the cabin. And then Hart's like, I went to my medicine man and had him bless my bullets. I'm like, all right, fool, you have to.
All right, fool.
And then so the episode ends with them all surrounding and the music is super suspenseful. It's so sexy.
I know it took all my might ready to keep going because that was a cliffhanger.
Me too.
The only reason I'm not binging it and just doing the recaps with you every single time is because I think that I'll accidentally say something that's for a different episode or confuse things and mix it and
me too.
So it's really hard because I would have been done with this already.
Easily done.
But we're doing this for you guys because I want to I want to really recap as I go. And and make sure I'm coming up with stuff beforehand because it's more fun that way.
Yeah, and honestly, it does stretch out because usually with true crime stuff, it's already over, and I'm like, well, now I have nothing else to watch.
Yeah,
so it is nice to stretch it out. I went back to just to see if I would want to do Worst Roommate Ever, and as soon as it started, and I saw the chick's back of her head walking towards the apartment, I was like, yeah, we are definitely going to recap that episode of Worst Roommate Ever. It's a two-parter.
We're just going to do the last
it's the last two because they're just comedic.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the best one. I think the other ones are
the other ones are a lot, but the last two, the two-parter with that chick, it's straight up comedy.
That was insane. Okay. For another time. But we'll plan on that next time, guys. After this for our true crime series, that'll be next. Yeah.
I kind of feel like they could have made this longer than 4 parts because we don't know how they're going to end it. We don't know what they're going to do, but I really hope they give me more options for suspects because right now,
I mean, as soon as we're done with this, my plan is to watch the third one because I've waited long enough.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I need to get some answers.
I need some answers immediately.
And I swear, if Kristin isn't she needs to meet somebody that's involved in this. Literally, what is the point of you being there? Most likely, here's my prediction for Kristin. Here's my prediction. I predict she's going to meet with someone, maybe
the
someone
who's
counselor.
In the
town. No, camp counselor seems like she's really remote. Maybe the sheriff. she's gonna go to like some. I'm imagining her like in a slow-mo shot, like unnecessary, like looking at a crime scene, or like where this was where it happened, or something like that.
This is why I think it's the camp counselor.
Okay.
Kristin doesn't really want to do any work.
No.
Okay. So we've made that abundantly clear with these 2 episodes. She's not going to talk to any of the victims' parents because she won't be able to say anything about herself. So that's not going to work. And I don't know if she has the wherewithal to be sensitive enough to not bring herself up in some capacity. And it's just she's going to look insane. It's going to be crystal clear that she has no business if she is anywhere near the victim's parents. So that's not going to happen. Investigators, again, she doesn't really want to do any work, and she's going to start talking about herself. And if she's talking to Mustache Man, he's not going to understand why she's doing that.
He's going to be Mustache Man would read her.
and maybe a Native American man is going to be so interested in talking about Native American things that Kristin's not going to be able to keep up, and and they're both going to be fighting to talk about what they want, and that's going to be weird. So that's not going to happen. Camp counselor, she can control. Camp counselor is weaker. And it gives her an opportunity to finally go on the grounds of the campsite that she never made it to. And she can take her around and show her things. It doesn't seem
like the camp counselor is going to be leaving wherever she's filming, though.
For all I know, she still lives there.
The camp counselor?
I'm just joking. She doesn't live there.
But camp counselor, I doubt that camp counselor ever wants to go near that place.
Somebody's taking her to that damn camp. I'm telling you,
sheriff.
Fine. The sheriff, Chris. Okay, let's meet halfway. Sheriff's taking her to the damn camp because she's getting to that camp she never made it to. Is all I know. She's getting to that
camp so that she can have that moment and be this is where this is where I was supposed to be.
Guys, this is the tent here.
I just imagine myself I was supposed to be
here. Like I just imagine myself only 8 years old, $150. I was definitely smaller than those girls. Oh God. And I could just imagine just being in here, all the things that I would do at camp, and like
she's going to be like looking over, like it's going to be like a slow-mo of her like looking towards like the sun.
Yeah. She's
like the sun is like behind her. So there's like a light on her.
Yeah. She's going to start breaking the fourth wall and talking to the camera guy. Like, oh, keep up, guys, over here. See, over here's, I used to spend a lot of time here. I actually think, if you look in the distance, he might have been even watching this spot. So who knows? He might have seen, because I would frequent this particular spot. I actually got my first kiss here, y'all.
I would hope that she actually tries to tie it into something. I feel like she's not even going to bring up possible evidence. I feel like she's just going to point out like, this was my favorite place to swing.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, she's so selfish.
No, she's 100%. I think that she's useless. She's going to go on that campgrounds because it's going to be the last episode.
Yes.
And she's going to I definitely think she's been to that camp before, right? I think that we have established that. So she has been there before. So she's definitely going to use this as places to show where she used to hang out. If she connects it in any way, she could be like, I think I did once stay in this tent. So they probably would have put me in this tent, actually, because everyone knew, because I was very popular at this camp, that I like this tent. Like, I don't know. I do know.
I know we're gonna get more slow-mo walks through the camp, maybe. I don't know, but
we made s'mores here, like shit like that. It's gonna be I just feel like you can make it into almost a really creepy drinking game. And the amount of times that she makes it about herself in any episode, you would be wasted before if it was even halfway done.
It's so bad.
It's sad because actually, I mean, clearly this is a horrific crime that happened, and I'm actually really interested to hear the details of it. And I think we're being so humorous about it because I'm just so actually upset and disgusted by her involvement in this and the way that they're involving her. I think it's not helpful to the story, to the retelling of it. And if I don't joke about it, I'm gonna like literally go into a very dark rant. Like, I'm actually I like watching it. If you could like see me watching it, every time it happened, I paused and almost audibly screamed of how upset I was. I'm mad. So I do want to be very clear. I'm fucking mad.
You could literally go through and omit every scene of hers and you wouldn't miss it. It would make more sense and it would flow better.
And I'm not here thinking that Kristin Chenoweth is some maniacal, mean-spirited person.
No, she's just narcissistic.
Yeah, it feels very narcissistic. I do not think she understands how bad this is coming off and how it seems like she is making all of these murders about her and her near-death experience that actually is not really.
It was not a near-death experience.
It's not.
No,
it's more
just, it's very like sliding doors.
It's just a random coincidence. And I'm sure there's other people. Excuse me.
The people that were actually at the camp.
They're
the ones that could have been. I
feel like the bits of Kristin that we're getting should have been replaced by seeing if there are any girls from the camp that was actually there.
Yeah.
Could give us, I would love to hear their perspective and like what they were thinking of that in that morning when they found out that this happened, what they were feeling when they were on the bus, or some interviews from their parents. I think that would have been better ways to use up Kristin's time.
Yeah. Like she could be interviewing them as opposed to just going and looking at old family photos.
Yeah. And the thing is, there is a tasteful way of if they really were hell bent on her being a part of this documentary, there's a tasteful way to incorporate her without it feeling so like
without her teaching a vocal class.
Yeah, that vocal class was so necessary. And also I do want to say, if this vocal class was created in the memory, because that's kind of what she's alluding to, of these three little girls, that's her inspiration for creating this camp allegedly, then I would needed to hear her talk about that with these girls,
right?
Of why this opportunity was given to these little girls, because it was honoring. Like I needed to see a bit. Were
they into singing? Like were these girls into musicals?
Because she at one point says something like that. She's like, I created this foundation to give back because I often would think, that's what she always says when she tries to connect with what doesn't make sense to make sense. Like she's I often think that's her connecting phrase usually, that like, what would these little girls do, like opportunities that they miss. So I created this foundation for singing that has that completely connects to me. And I like, there was no bits from the parents saying that, oh, my little girl Denise loves singing and loves performing. She's actually, Denise seems pretty shy. I don't think she would have done that. I don't know. We don't have too much information on any of the other girls' personality, and we haven't even heard anything from the third victim's families.
Yeah, so she's not involved. Yeah, that's sad.
I mean, and I understand it. Like, yeah, not everybody
everyone can relive it.
Yeah, it might not be a healthy thing for her to do that. So, or
she's not alive,
or maybe she,
or there's no more surviving relatives. I haven't looked into it because
but everybody deals with that kind of stuff differently, and there has to be a reason why she's not included in. I don't know what it is, but
yeah. All right, so part 3 coming next, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell. I'm Emily. That's Pia.
Hello.
Or wherever the video is.
Or goodbye, I should say.
Oh yeah. Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.